Today's video is about topic of aerobic respiration. Previously we have looked at what respiration is and why it's important. Today we're looking at aerobic respiration, which is one of the two main forms of respiration that you need to understand for GCSE. Now, when we've looked at respiration before, we have said that respiration is the release of energy. In particular, it's the release of energy in order for the energy to be used by cells. And we've said that respiration has to happen in every living cell, so every cell of your body is doing respiration. When you're doing respiration and releasing the energy to be used by your cells, the energy is being released from food, in particular being released from molecules of sugar, or to give it a scientific name, glucose. And that's where we got to last time, and we talked about the idea that the energy being released in respiration is used for a range of processes by cells, such as active transport, polymerization, so building large molecules, and also for the cell to move. Today we're going to talk about aerobic respiration. The first thing to say about aerobic respiration is to notice the spelling. It is aerobic, like an aero bar, not aerobic, like that. That one is incorrect. Aerobic respiration is probably the most important form of respiration. It's carried out by most living things. So things that do aerobic respiration are plants, animals, some bacteria, and microorganisms called yeast. Don't forget that as far as science is concerned, you are an animal, so that means that you do aerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is nothing but a chemical reaction that takes place within your cells and releases energy. So the point of it is to release energy for the cells to use. Now, the equation for aerobic respiration is important, and we do need to make sure we learn it. So with any chemical equation, always start off with the arrow. Remember, the arrow is showing us what we're starting off with and what we're producing. So the arrow effectively means makes. So on the left hand side of the arrow we have two things. We have glucose, known to you as sugar, but we need to make sure we're using the scientific term, so glucose, and we have oxygen. We refer to these things as our reactants. That means that they are things needed for the reaction to go ahead. They appear on the left hand side of the arrow, so we've got glucose and oxygen. On the right hand side of the arrow we've got the things that we're going to make, and we make three things with aerobic respiration. The first thing that we make is carbon dioxide. The second thing we make is water, and the third thing we make, which is the point of the whole thing, well, I shouldn't say we make it because you can't make it, the third thing we release is energy. Now, when we write energy, we always put it in brackets because we're not making it, it's not a physical thing, it's just something that is released in the reaction. So that's the simple form of the aerobic respiration reaction. But reactants of glucose and oxygen making the products on this side, which is the things that are made of carbon dioxide, water, and releasing some energy. Now, we have to make sure that we know the symbol equation. So the symbol equation is using the symbols for the molecules to show what's in the reaction. So if we start off with the easy ones, we've got oxygen, which always goes around in pairs, so it's O2. We've got carbon dioxide that we know, which is CO2, and we're making water. Now, there is no symbol for energy because energy is not made of atoms. Put my arrow in as well. and a new symbol for us, which is the symbol for the molecule of glucose, which is C6H12O6. Now, in writing these symbols, the first thing I would point out to you is where I have put the numbers in, such as the C6, the H12, the O2, the CO2, the H2 in the water. All of these numbers are small. There you've got the symbol for the element, such as carbon, and the number is positioned like that, kind of below and to the right. C6 is correct. If you write C6 like that, that is wrong. If you write C6 like that, that means C to the power of 6. That's wrong as well. So you need to make sure you get your symbols, or sorry, not your symbols, but your numbers in your symbols correct. If you look at this equation as well, those of you who are good chemists will spot that actually it doesn't balance. And what that means is that we've got different numbers of atoms on each side. So at the moment, for example, we've got 6 carbon atoms on the left hand side in things needed, the ingredients, and on the right hand side we have got only 1 carbon atom over here. So we've got we're starting off with 6 carbon atoms and we're ending up with 1. And in a chemical reaction we never lose any atoms. We just break them apart and we change them around and reassemble them in a different order. So we have to make sure that the equation balances. So in an exam, if you're ever asked for a balanced symbol equation, they'd expect to see these symbols, but they also want to know how much you need of each molecule. Now, you only ever need 1 lot of the glucose molecule, so that stays the same, but you need 6 molecules of oxygen, 1 lot of glucose, and you're going to make 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. Now notice in this case, because the number is going in front of the symbol for the molecule, the number is a large number. So these numbers here have to be large. So that, in essence, is the equation for aerobic respiration. The things you should think about now is, what does it mean? And where do we get our reactants from, and what happens to our products? So if we think about the glucose for aerobic respiration, glucose being the scientific name for sugar, the way we get sugar from is ultimately this is coming from our food. The oxygen is coming from the air that we breathe. So when you breathe in, you take air into your lungs. The oxygen from the air is removed, goes into your blood, and travels to the cells that need the oxygen to do aerobic respiration. Now, I'm going to put up another video about the link between aerobic respiration and breathing. I suggest you watch that to understand really what's happening here. The carbon dioxide that's produced and the water, both of these are waste materials. Your cell does not want carbon dioxide and it doesn't want water. The thing that the cell wants is the energy, because that was the point of doing aerobic respiration, to release the energy. So the carbon dioxide and the water, they have to be removed from the body. The water is removed in your urine and the carbon dioxide goes into your blood, ultimately goes back to your lungs and you breathe it out and it's passed back out into the air. So this reaction is really, really important, and the reason it's important is that it is used by cells to produce energy, and it doesn't just produce energy, it produces lots of energy. Every time a cell does this reaction, it produces lots of energy. It can only happen though in a certain part of the cell. It happens in a part of a cell, an organelle, called a mitochondrion. The plural of mitochondrion that you will have come across as well is mitochondria. So and that is the part of the cell where aerobic respiration happens. Ooh. Sorry, I can't spell. Where aerobic respiration happens. Now, in the structure of the animal cell that you have been taught up till now, you have had your cell membrane that goes around the edge of the cell. You've had the nucleus in the middle of the cell that contains the DNA. But the mitochondria are small structures. They're kind of oval in shape, look a bit like a tic-tac, that are found floating in the cytoplasm, and that is where the the chemical reaction of aerobic respiration takes place. Now, the reason that it only happens in the mitochondria is the mitochondria have enzymes. Now, when we studied enzymes, we talked about the idea that enzymes are specific and that you need different enzymes to do different jobs. So these mitochondria don't have enzymes, they have specifically the enzymes for aerobic respiration. Now, the job of these enzymes is to enable this reaction to take place. The reason aerobic respiration doesn't happen in the nucleus is because it hasn't got the enzymes needed for it to take place. These enzymes are only found in the mitochondria. So what that means is no mitochondria then equals no aerobic respiration. If you've not got the mitochondria, you've not got the enzymes you need in order for this reaction to take place, in order for the glucose to break down and be stuck together with the oxygen. Because aerobic respiration is a chemical reaction that's controlled by enzymes, it means that it is affected by the things that affect enzymes. Now, when we studied enzymes, you would have found out that enzymes are affected by temperature, pH, and concentration of the thing that they're working on, the substrate. Now, in the case of aerobic respiration, the enzymes are found in the mitochondria. The substrates that they're working on are both the glucose and the oxygen from the reaction. So things that will affect how quickly a cell can do aerobic respiration are both the levels of glucose and oxygen, the concentration of glucose and oxygen, the pH of the cell. So the pH is how acid or alkali the cell is, and also the temperature. So in summary, aerobic respiration is nothing but a chemical process that takes place within cells. It's where cells are releasing energy from glucose, and they're releasing the energy from glucose by combining the glucose with oxygen to make carbon dioxide and water, which are waste products, and energy, which is what the cell needs. And it's going to use that energy for doing things that cells do, such as active transport. The reason aerobic respiration is good is it makes lots of energy. In order for it to go ahead, you have to have enough, the cell has to have glucose and oxygen. The part of the cell where it happens, this chemical reaction, is called the mitochondrion, plural mitochondria. And the reason it happens in the mitochondria is that is where the enzymes needed for this reaction to happen, the enzymes that are going to break down the glucose and combine it with the oxygen, where they are found. So if you've got no mitochondria, you've got no enzymes, so you've got no aerobic respiration. Because this process is controlled by enzymes, it is affected by things that will affect the enzymes. So if you've got the wrong temperature, the enzymes will not work at their optimum level. If you've got the wrong pH, and it's also affected by the concentrations of substrate. So that's a place where they can link these topics together. I'm going to put up another video talking about the link between aerobic respiration and both heart rate and breathing. I hope you found this useful today.